Today we're going to tie my favorite carp fly of this past year. It's my Carp Nymph. I fish mostly for carp subsurface when they're tailing. And this is a little fly I came up with this past year that works really well for carp. And let's get started. Just start with our thread right behind our eye. I'm going to go about a third of the way or halfway up the hook. Then wrap back so we're just about a third of the way back from the eye. And trim off our excess thread. We're going to tie in some bead chain for the eye of the fly. Just gives it enough weight to sink. Now for this fly I'm using bead chain, but if you're going to fish in a little deeper water, it's nice to have some of these tied up with like a lead dumbbell eye, or also a reel eye, something that's a little bit heavier just in case you need to get down deeper. It's nice to have flies tied with both. Okay, now we're going to move to the back of the hook. We're going to take and tie in some crystal flash for an antenna. Just going to take one piece of crystal flash that's been doubled over, tie that down at the front of the hook so we get some antenna. Trim those off so they're just a little over an inch long. Now we're going to do the same thing with a pair of silly legs. These are some chrome silly legs. I like these chrome silly legs. And fold that over, pull it forward and tie that down as you go. This is going to be our antenna here. Cut those off. So now you got kind of two sets of antenna. And then we're going to tie in a little puff of marabou. And I like to use like grizzly marabou. I think it makes a nice little puff to tie at the front of the fly. So we'll take a grizzly marabou feather. We'll tie that in right on top of those antennae, and then tie that down the length of the shank and trim out any excess that you might have. Go ahead and just cover those up with some fresh thread wraps. Then you're going to take a piece of Estas. I like to use the petite Estas. Tie that petite Estas in right at the back of the hook. Go ahead and advance your thread about a little more than halfway towards those bead chain eyes. Then you need two about inch long, maybe inch and a half long pieces of the silly legs. We're going to tie a set of those in on either side of the hook so that you get a little V off either side of the hook. Turn the vise so you can see that. Got a little V there now. And then what you're going to do is a little trick. Slide the thread towards the eye of the hook. Gather all of those legs. Pull them forward and just throw a couple loose turns of thread on. That's just going to hold those legs out of the way while you wrap the Estas for the body. So we'll start wrapping the Estas for the body now. Kind of fold it back with each wrap so that you get the most volume out of it for your body. Now, right when you get to these legs, you're going to undo those thread wraps. You're going to wrap right in between the legs with one wrap, fold the front legs back, and then wrap in front of those. And we're going to wrap up to our bead chain. When we get to the bead chain, we're going to wrap over the top of them, come back around, wrap back underneath them, then tie off in front of the eye. or in front of the bead chain eyes, right behind the eye of the hook. Fold that all back. Get all the extra fibers out of the way. And then we'll go ahead and trim that extra estaz off. Some of those loose fibers out. And then we'll finish the fly with some half hitches or whip finishes, whatever you want to do. I've been feeling lazy lately and just been doing half hitches. I just broke my thread, but I'll super glue that and make sure that he doesn't come undone. So now you can trim these legs on the side down a little bit so they stick out about 1 inch a piece. Now what I'd like to do to finish the fly, after I've trimmed those legs a little short, is I like to trim the bottom of the fly so it's a little flatter. That way when it rides hook point up, as those little dumbbell eyes are going to make this fly flip over, it'll sit nice and flat on the bottom. And turn the fly over. It'll sit like that on the bottom. And this is something you want to lead a cruising carp with by about 2-3 feet, maybe as much as 10 feet, depending on how much time you need for that fly to sink down to the bottom. But it really gets the job done. You can tie it. I've done kind of a root beer colored theme here. You can tie it more of a sandy color or even an olive color and do really well. It's not that hard to tie. But like I said, also remember to tie some up with some heavier eyes. Make it sink a little faster if you're fishing in water that's 5-6 feet deep as opposed to 1 or 2 feet deep. But that's my Carp Nymph, and it's been just an awesome fly for me this year and last. So tie some up and go catch some bugle lip salmon, as Don Paulovich likes to call them. Talk to you later. Thanks.